everyone, and thank you for joining me for another SpouseLink live stream. I'm Anna Larson, and this is my guest, Aleida Flores. We're having a little bit of a different kind of configuration today because Aleida just happens to live about 5 minutes down the road from me. So instead of her jumping on her own video, we decided to just meet in the same house and hang out in my office and have a live stream together. So we're super glad that you're here. SpouseLink live streams are designed for military spouses who are thinking about retirement, experiencing military retirement, or have crossed into retirement and now living a civilian life on the other side. That would be me, yay, as of 8 months. So first things first, I would love for you to tell me where you are joining us from, and who you are and a little bit about you, kind of where you're at in that retirement phase. And we would love to know also what part of the world you're living in right now, because I know that we have spouses joining us from all across the world at all the different military bases, around the world. So just a little about me. If you aren't familiar with me right now, I am Anna Larson. I am a copywriter and digital marketer. I'm a homeschool mom, and I'm a retired military spouse. So this past year, my soldier retired from active duty military status, which was really a difficult transition for our family. And part of that was because of the whole COVID timeframe and the fact that a lot of the services that normally would have been available were not available. But the other part of that was, to be real honest, I just was not prepared for it. I had not done what I needed to do in order to retire with grace, I guess is the best way to put that. So that struggle eventually led me to SpouseLink and AFMA, where now I get to support military spouses who are going through that transition and hopefully giving you resources, information, and a community of support so that you're much better prepared than I am. Okay, so today's conversation with Aleida is all about finding a forever home. And this is advice from a military spouse realtor's perspective. That would be her right here. So just to tell you a little bit about Aleida, Aleida and I met at Fort Campbell about 8 years ago. And we didn't really know each other. We had mutual friends, but we didn't really run the same circles at the same time. And so she's kind of been on my radar for a long time. You know how that is in the military world, right? You know of people, you go to the same duty stations. And then when I got back here to Fort Hood, Aleida was also living here. And sure enough, we ended up running within the same similar circles again. And next thing you know, it's somebody saying, hey, you should use her to sell your house, because we were looking for a forever home at that moment. And I was like, oh, she's a realtor. Okay. And connected with her and immediately felt this affinity of she's going to be a great realtor and hired her. And so Aleida sold her house. And so I have firsthand experience with this lady being an awesome realtor, first of all. But second of all, knowing that she's got that military spouse perspective and that military family perspective, which is one of the things that's so important to today's conversation. So I would say, just to introduce her just a little bit, she is a powerhouse of knowledge when it comes to navigating military life with grace, PCS moves, and finding a home. So let me tell you a little bit about Aleida. She's a 20-year active duty Army spouse. She's lived at 7 different duty stations, mom of a 16-year-old, and she's got a pup named Hazel. Mm-hmm. She's a seasoned military spouse. She has started and admins several Facebook groups that help military spouses navigate their way around military life. I happen to be part of a couple of them. Okay. She also works full-time as a realtor in the Fort Hood, Texas area with All City Real Estate. Her passion is helping military families find the perfect home in this very competitive market. And in her spare time, Aleida enjoys puzzles, working out, and watching movies. So hi, Aleida. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you here. I want to know, before we get started, with our conversation, I'm just curious, from the people who are listening, are you in the process of buying your forever home? And if you are, what stage are you in? Have you already purchased it and you planning on moving back to it? Are you thinking about buying, but you're not quite sure where? Are you, are you just starting to think through that process because that retirement is going to happen in the next duty station. So I'm curious to know kind of where you're at. So drop a comment in, and even if you're doing the replay, I'd love to kind of just hear kind of what stage you're at. And then, okay, so I think we're ready to get started. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I feel like
I'm kind of going through the process too, because my husband's retiring in June.
Oh, yes, that's a really good point. Aleida's husband just got his retirement orders. So they've got 6 months, but you guys already have your forever home.
Yes. When we came to Fort Hood, we already knew that this was going to be it. Our families are 6 hours away from here, which is perfect.
Yeah.
And we already knew that. So we picked our forever home before we knew we were retiring.
That kind of happened with us too. It was that ending process of trying to decide where we were going next. And we were like, we know we're staying at Fort Hood right now. So because of that, we sold the house that we had bought that was our military house, the one where it would do for now, but it was not the house I wanted to live in for long term. So we sold that house and then purchased a forever home here. So yes, so it is interesting because everybody's in a different kind of phase, or everybody's experience is so different. Like Selena here who's watching, so she purchased a home in a place she didn't even realize was going to be her forever for now home, and now she's going to be staying in it. So that's awesome. And I think because everybody's experience is so different, that's one of the reasons why this conversation is so important. So, okay, let's jump in to our conversation. I'm going to ask the very first question. What makes buying a forever or what makes buying a final PCS or a forever home as a retiring military family different than any other family purchasing a home, like any other home buying experience?
Well, I guess when you're moving with the military, they're telling you where you need to go. Whereas when you're retiring, you kind of get to pick where you get to go. So you want to look at the biggest difference, the state that you're moving to, because you want to know what type of like federal and state benefits they have, right? If you're 100%, like Texas doesn't charge you any taxes on your home. So that's a huge factor. And you'll probably be able to get more home than you would have because you don't have to pay those taxes.
Yeah, that's super important because in some states you have income tax, some states you have high property tax, some states you have a combination of both of those things. And so looking at your retirement pay and the financials that you're dealing with,
if they're going to get taxed or not.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference in the amount of mortgage you could have, as well as like just location wise, right? I mean, I just wrote an article posted on LinkedIn about this that just kind of talked about, and it did have a link in there, by the way. If you're looking for a link, military.com did a great article where they basically list every state and tell you the state benefits that are available in that state. Everything from you get a free fishing and hunting license to your property taxes. And even in Texas, I just found this out, but if you're 100% disabled, you don't even have to pay airport parking fees.
Yes, I know. And the toll. I think the tolls are free too.
Are they?
In Texas?
Oh, I didn't know that one.
Yes.
That's one we're definitely going to have to look into. So anyway, just super interesting information that you can find as you're searching for that forever home. So absolutely. So that is definitely one. What's another factor that you would say for military families would make a big difference?
I guess the second one would be what you talked about in your article about how if your spouse gets a job somewhere, they don't necessarily stay there. So don't go in building your forever home, because as far as the percentages you put, most military retirees leave their first job after 50% leave their first job within the first year.
They do,
right? And then 80%, that's a huge one, leave within the second year. So I would hate for you guys to buy your forever home and then your husband changes their mind or spouse just changes their mind and you have to leave that home. So just like, what's the word? Tread lightly or not. Don't jump into things.
Yes, exactly. Well, I think what's important to that is to remember, like our soldiers aren't used to staying in one place for a long time.
Yes.
And so I think that first job, sometimes they jump into it not realizing what it's going to exactly be. And sometimes they go into it and they like it, but they get that wanderlust or that there's something better over the horizon feeling, because that's been their life for 20 plus years, and it's really hard to think that it's hard for me. It was hard for me to say, we're going to be here for 10 years. Like, I haven't lived anywhere for 10 years since I was a kid. And even then, the longest I lived in any one location was 10 years. Yeah. Right. Even as a kid, my family moved often enough that I didn't have huge, long, forever home stretches of one house growing up. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of in our blood to like have that wanderlust, or what's over there, maybe that's better, or that location, we would like it, or, mm-hmm. The opportunities there. So that's really good. Okay. So what about if you're buying before or after retirement? Does it make a difference as far as your ability to get a loan? Like if you still have your active duty job versus if you are now retired and living off retirement pay and maybe don't have another job at this point?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's going to be lender specific too, but from what I see from the lenders that I work with here in Texas, if the job is similar, like let's say you were a nurse in the military and you're going to continue to be a nurse in the civilian side, then that can help you. But if you're going to be a nurse, or were a nurse, and then now you're going to do something totally different, that might affect you being able to get a loan. So just, I mean, talk to the lenders as soon as you can before, jumping on to buying a home. Yeah. Making sure that you qualify. If you know that you're 6 months out from retirement, go and talk to them now, and make sure that they give you all the guidelines and regulations about what's going to happen.
And I remember when we had this conversation earlier, you had mentioned that some lenders, knowing that if you're at the end of your career, will even require letters from like your commander. Yes. About what your time in service is going to still be, because they don't want to necessarily provide a loan to someone who's not going to have a job in 6 months. Yes. That's a high risk for them.
Yes, but if you're already like 20 years plus in the military, they know for sure you're going to retire and you're going to have a retirement pay. So then they can use that calculator to kind of help you too. That's awesome. It's like if you're like between 18 and 20 years that it's, a little tricky. But after 20 years, they're able to figure out at least the retirement pay to see how much you qualify for.
Yeah, I know that's a huge stressor for a lot of military spouses, especially because, a lot of times we're the ones who are looking at the finances for the family. Yeah. And so just that after retirement, what's going to happen to my finances? And then that conversation of, what am I going to use to buy our home, or how are we going to factor that mortgage into our retirement pay? I mean, that's a big conversation.
Yeah. Especially right now, because before with a VA loan, we don't have to give money down and we didn't have to pay our own closing costs because typically the seller paid for those. Yeah. But in this crazy market right now, the buyers are having to pay for everything. So, you don't have to pay for your last move if you're retiring. The military usually pays for that, but you don't necessarily get that money up front either. Yeah. So that's a lot of money if you haven't been saving.
That is such a good point, Aleida. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to question number 2. What are 2 things that most people forget about when considering a forever home? And this is mostly because, I'm not necessarily talking about, I forgot I wanted vanity in the bathroom and we didn't get one, or something like that. I'm talking about, like what are some things that as people are going through this process, because it is an emotional process. Yeah. And it's a huge time of transition for most families. So there's already another layer of emotions and craziness happening on top of that. So what would you say are 2 things that people should really be thinking about?
Well, long-term consideration, this is your forever home. So make sure that you think about it. Don't just jump into it. But also, like, being a military wife, I think that makes us like, not experts, but we know what we want, because it's like, I want my closet from my El Paso house, or I want my kitchen from my Fort Campbell house. And then you're like hodgepodging all the houses that you've lived in to make your forever home, right? So I mean, ideally, it would be perfect to build a house and talk to a builder and get what you want from all the houses that you've lived in. But that's not always the case. You may have to buy a resale home. But take notes, like have a little diary of all the things that you love about all the places you've lived. And that way, when you get your good realtor, tell her, this is what I like. This is what I'm looking for. And then she can help you, or he can help you.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that when we looked at building a home here, but there wasn't there wasn't a home with enough land on it that we were excited about that.
Yeah.
But what sold me on the house we ended up with was, one, it had this office space, which clearly I've decorated and it's all mine at this point. But second, I've got a 14-foot kitchen island.
I know. I love her island.
It was like I walked in the house and I went, oh, this is what I've always wanted. I've dealt with these 3-foot long like military house or temporary house like islands for so long that my kitchen island is so big and expansive. It just makes me want to like makes
have
my
parties
heart
all the time. Have a nacho bar, taco bar.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Okay, so I know this market right now has been just a little bit crazy, and
Super crazy.
yeah, right. I mean, it is out of a little out
I
of
think
control.
nobody expected this, or I mean, everybody's.
Yeah. So are you going to give us the inside scoop? Do you have an inside scoop? Like what about waiting for the market to slow down a little bit before you go into a purchase right now? Is that a smart plan for a military family?
If you're retiring and you have the option, like to live with somebody or to rent a home, then I would say do that first and take things slow if this is your forever home. I know when you PCS, you don't have that option, but when you retire, you do. So if you can rent an apartment for a little bit or live with family, do that and make sure that you're making the right decision for your family before investing in your forever home.
Yeah, because
who knows when it's going to slow down or if it's going to slow down. I mean, I know for us here at Fort Hood, we're between Austin and Waco, and they're getting so many big companies there and people can't afford to live there. So then they're moving inward towards us in the Fort Hood area. So we're seeing a lot of cash buyers right now. And unfortunately, our soldiers can't compete with that with the VA loan sometimes.
Yeah, that makes it really difficult for families that are looking to settle in a location for a long time. And then tell me, like, what is the news on the market? What is the expectations? What are they saying about it right now?
Nobody knows.
Of course,
nobody knows. It's like changes. Like some weeks I think, oh, okay, it's slowing down, and then nope, like end up with 20 offers on a house. It's just insane.
In 24 hours, right?
In 24 hours, yes.
Homes are moving so quickly. And I think this is an important point for that if you have the opportunity to wait and really go for what it is that you want, because I think people are giving up a lot of what's on their checklist of what I really want in a home just to get a home.
Yes,
because they're desperate. And that's really hard.
That's really hard because there's no rentals. Everybody who had rentals is selling their rentals, or the price of the rentals have gone up and our BAH has not gone up,
Yeah.
So it's making it really difficult. So people out of desperation are just like, okay, well, if I like it enough, I'll get this one. But you don't want to do that for your forever home. You want to get what you want to get. So if you have the time, be patient.
Yeah.
Don't get a realtor who's going to push you to get something you don't want.
Ooh, that was a really good flow right into our next question.
Okay, awesome.
Because our next question was, okay, so I read this article that basically said the biggest regret that post-home purchasers are having right now was that they didn't have a realtor that was aggressive enough or advocated enough on their behalf. So I'm just let me just give a little shout out here to Aleida. Like, I loved how Aleida handled our home sale. It wasn't that she was aggressive. It was that the way she worked, I really knew I could trust her with, whatever she said, I believed was the truth, if that makes sense. Like, I think realtors sometimes have a
bad rap because of others realtors that have given that bad rap.
Maybe like a stereotype of it being a little shady, I guess is a good way to put it. And so, okay, so my question to you then is, what questions should a military family be asking to find the perfect realtor for them?
Okay, I made you a list.
She did, and I'm actually going to pull it up really quick. Okay. Hold on. Let me pull this. I'm going to add this to the stream. Okay.
But trust is a big one, guys. You need to really trust your realtor.
Oh, there's Aleida. We forgot to show your bio. There's Aleida's bio. Okay, so here's the 10 questions to ask a realtor. All right. Let's go through these.
Okay, number 1, do you work full-time as a real estate agent? Number 2, how long have you been in real estate business? Number 3, do you have additional certifications beyond your general real estate license? Number 4, how many residential real estate transactions have you been a part of in the past year? And how many of those transactions did you represent the buyer? That's important, because some realtors are strictly listing agents and don't really work with buyers. And 6, what was the price range of homes you helped clients buy within the last year? Number 7, what was the average price? Number 8, do you partner with other agents or use assistants? Number 9, do you have a list of preferred lenders you can recommend? Can you please send me 3? And 10, how will I reach you? Are there days or times you're unavailable? So I think the last one is really, really important, especially for me. I work a lot with military families, so I can have clients in Korea or Germany, and so they want to make sure that I'm available when they're up, right?
Yeah.
So make sure that you find a realtor, and especially if you're going to be using the VA loan, find a realtor who knows all the rules and regulations about using a VA loan to purchase, because there is a lot.
Yeah. That is really good advice. I loved these 10 questions. I mean, there's a lot of people that say, ask questions of the realtor, but you never really quite know what to ask or what is going to be the most pertinent, I guess, kinds of questions that come up. So I really appreciated, I appreciated that Aleida had like a list that you had a client actually ask.
Yes, a client asked me. They were first-time home buyers. I don't know where they got all the questions, but I was like, wow, this is awesome. And they didn't just ask me, they asked others. And I filled them out honestly, and they ended up choosing me as their realtor. And so I was just like, wow, that made me feel good to go through them and that they picked me.
Yeah. So we have a question from someone in our audience. So
okay.
If they say no to number 1, how should we be reacting to that? And let me just pull this up again so we can add it.
To number 1 what?
To the number 1 question, which is, do you work full-time as a real estate agent?
Oh, okay. Well, how much time are you going to be available for me? You know what I mean? Because there is great agents who work other jobs, but you want to know how much time they're going to be available to you, because especially in this hot market, if a house that you like comes on and they can't go see it until tomorrow or the next day, you're not going to get that house. You need somebody who's going to be on it, who's going to be able to go see the house as soon as it comes on. And that's why the other question, number 8, also, you'll partner with other agents or assistants, because if they have an assistant that can go and show for them, then it may not be a big deal. But if they don't, then.
Yeah. I think the questions I really liked in here were how many transactions you've been a part of and how many times you represented the buyer. Yeah. Because I think for me, like, it's not so much longevity in the job. It's more the how many times have you done this, represented the buyer, and been a success and successfully completed a sale? Like, that to me almost feels like a stronger value than, I've been doing this for 20 years.
Yeah, and I haven't. I'm a newer agent. I've been doing it 2.5 years, but I've been very blessed that my broker, who was my realtor, has been my mentor. And so I've always had him on my corner. If I didn't know something, I was going to ask. I wasn't just going to get something out from somewhere. I'm going to say, I don't know, but I'm going to get you the answer as soon as possible. So,
but in that time frame, Aleida, I mean, you were telling me the other day, you've done what? Over 70 transactions in 3 years time.
2.5.
That's 2.5 years. Okay. 2.5 years. That's huge.
Yes.
That's 30, let's say 30 months and over 70 transactions. Like, that is a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot for a new agent. My broker told me that I might, my first year, do 4 transactions. Like, that's about how many he had quoted that I would do. And I just far exceeded what he told me.
I'm telling you, Fort Hood people, if you're looking for a great real estate agent, okay, so one of the things we mentioned in here was trust. And really what it comes down to, I think, is feeling comfortable with the person that you're with, right?
Yes.
And it's like that conversation that we had where even though I knew who you were, I didn't know what kind of real estate agent you were, but I trusted my friend that said you were a great one.
Yes.
And then when I met you and I started working with you, I'm like, oh, I believe what she says. And right now, because of the way the market is, there's so many demands, like things that you wouldn't normally give up as a home buyer, but that your real estate agent is saying, yeah, you're going to have to say no home inspection, or you're going to have to go 30,000 over the asking price.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to have that trust with your real estate agent to make sure that
and sometimes they don't believe you the first transaction. Sometimes it
Yeah.
takes 3. Like sometimes you write 3 offers for someone and they tell you, no, the last time I did this, the seller paid my closing costs, or my friend says that they got their closing costs paid for. And I'll ask them, when did your friend purchase? Because
Right.
things are changing like every day. So trust what they tell you, but I understand why you would be hesitant. So we have to earn your trust as well as realtors. And sometimes it takes a few. I mean, I've written very well written offers where the buyer is just like giving their firstborn child and they still don't get the house. So, I mean, and it's just what you feel comfortable giving. You know what I mean? This is not my house. This is what I tell my clients. This is not my house, and I'm not going to be paying the mortgage. So you have to be comfortable with how much you offer over asking price, because it still has to appraise also. So you have to be willing to give the amount that you say over, even if it doesn't appraise.
Yeah,
right?
That's a really good point. And this is really when it comes back to that, really look at, and clearly this conversation is pertinent to now, what's happening right now in this market, right? I mean, this isn't something, maybe hopefully 10 years from now, we can provide different advice for military families that are looking for their forever home. But right now, if you're looking for a forever home, and it's pretty much across the U.S. that the market is from like other people.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, especially around military towns, you're going to be finding the same kind of like heightened market where you're having to give up a lot as the buyer.
Yes.
And so I just think it's really important to reevaluate that. What are we willing to give up, is considering that this is your long-term investment. This is not a 2 to 3 year investment that you can sell when the military says move somewhere else. This is your plan to stay here for the long term. So yeah. Okay. That's great.
And especially like if you're buying a home in the Fort Hood area, I mean, the probability of you selling it or having it as a rental is high because people are always coming. So if you're retiring somewhere that's not like that, then I really caution you to be careful what you purchase.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So then moving on, what about retiring families buying sight unseen?
If you don't have to, don't do it, is my suggestion. I mean, I know military families have to when they're PCSing, especially from overseas. But if this is your retirement home, don't do it. Go visit it, or get yourself a really good agent who's going to like take videos for you and be as picky, as you would be.
Yeah.
You tell them what you want. I want you to look at the air conditioning vents. I want you to look at
air conditioning vents. I love that was your example.
I don't know. I'm trying to think. I had a client recently who was very particular, and he's like, I want you to look at these 3 things and all the houses. And so then I already knew, he wanted me to check to make sure that there was air conditioning vents in the closets because he does Bitcoin mining. And he has like the computers. I don't know if you know anything about this.
Okay.
And the computers produce a lot of heat. And so then he wanted to make sure where he was going to put them that there was good ventilation.
Oh my gosh, isn't that so funny?
Yeah.
So it's think about the things that are specific to your family's needs and make sure that whatever that house is, especially if you have to go sight unseen, that those things are part of that house. Yeah, because nobody wants to be putting in new air ducts right after they buy a house. I know I don't want to. Oh, that's funny. Okay, so Aleida, we're kind of near the end of our conversation. I think this has been incredibly interesting in terms of like moving forward from a realtor's perspective. If you're a military family just getting ready for this conversation, like if you're getting ready to buy a home at this point. Oh wait, we got a comment that came up. So she had a realtor take videos of my driveway and looking at the street. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Some people don't like steep driveways.
Yes.
Especially if you have babies, you know what I mean? And you're in a busy street. You want that driveway so that your little kid can play on the front porch or whatever.
Yes. So. You want to know one of our big hot buttons for our family is the street, like parking. You know how you'll have sometimes neighbors that have like 49 vehicles?
Yeah.
and they park all surrounding your house. So you never have space for your guests to park on the street. That is like a hot button for me. So we did actually drive by our house multiple times at different times of the day and night just to see like what did the street parking look like. But if I bought sight unseen, that could have been an issue.
Yeah. And if you're a first time buyer, you don't know to look for that. But if you're
Yeah.
not, then you know, like, oh, in my last house, my neighbors always parked in the street. So I want to make sure that that doesn't happen to me again. But if you don't know, you don't know, right?
Yes.
So,
You know, this is funny. Like now I just want to ask like anybody who watching this or watching the replay, like pop in the comments, like what is your hot button
Yeah.
for your home? I'm super curious kind of to hear. Another one of ours is, I swear, for every house the military's ever given us and every house we've ever bought, we have ended up in the low point of the neighborhood where we have like a ditch that runs through our backyard, or it turns into a pool of water when it rains, or whatever the case is. We're always that low point that seems to have like some massive water harboring.
oh my goodness, that's not good. So I will say, like, when I have clients, you know, and I'm showing them around, if they're with me and the neighbors are outside, I'm like, go talk to them. You know, go ask them questions, you know, because the neighbors will tell you. They'll tell you. So you'll get some honest answers from the neighbors.
Yeah. And if they're a little bit creepy, then you find out if you have creepy neighbors or
Yeah.
not before you buy the house. That's funny. All right. Yeah. So drop your hot buttons in the comments if you're watching the replay, if you're watching right now. Okay. So we're at the end of our conversation. One last question for Aleida. What is your number one piece of advice to a military family looking for a forever home?
So make sure you get yourself a good realtor and a good lender. The realtor usually will recommend the lender, right, that she's comfortable with and that is known in the community to be able to close the deal. Let's see here.
Tell us, why is a lender so important, really quickly?
It's so important because they're the ones that are going to be financing the house. So it doesn't matter how many houses I find you and we get accepted.
Yeah.
The lender's the one that's going to take it through to the closing. You know what I mean? To make sure that like their underwriters, everything's taken care of. And I work with some amazing lenders, and all of mine today, knock on wood, have gone through to closing. So, and I credit that to them because they have relationships with other realtors in the area, with title companies. You know, if something's not going the way it should, they can call all those people and we work as a team, you know, to try to get the buyer of the house.
Yeah. So good realtor, good lender.
Yes.
Those are the big ones.
And don't let the realtor pressure you into buying something you don't want, because you're the one that's going to have to pay that mortgage and you have to love what you get. So get somebody that you can trust and is not going to pressure you.
Yeah. So it's almost like really like the big piece of advice is like, take your time, find what you really want. And if you don't know what you want and you have the option to rent or live with family, like you said before, go ahead and do that.
Yep.
Yes, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's not ideal. It's not what you know, 20
you're
years
going to be
in the
uncomfortable
military.
for a little bit, whereas you buy forever home, you're going to be uncomfortable for a long time.
That's right. So think long-term. Maybe that's the number one piece of advice. Remember, this is a long-term investment, not like a short-term PCS stint like we're used to, you know? Yeah. Okay. That's so good. Okay. So that's fantastic. We're going to go ahead. There's two things that I want everyone to do. The first one is connect with Aleida. All right.
Yes,
so Aleida, tell us how you want people to connect with you if they have questions.
You guys can email me at soldbyaleida@gmail.com, or you can reach out to me on Facebook at soldbyaleida. You can message me there as well.
And that is her real estate Facebook page, that kind of where she puts all of her hot tips and interesting information. And if you're in the Fort Hood area, I'm just going to say she's a fantastic realtor. So highly recommended. Yes. Okay. And then the second thing that I wanted to make sure that everybody knew is that I want you to connect with me on LinkedIn. Okay. So if this is the type of conversation that you're interested in having, because you are a military family getting ready to go through military retirement, going through that transition time frame, even if it's not retirement and you're ETSing out of the military and that transition is happening, these are pertinent conversations for you as well, because you're going through that same process, just like a retiring 20 plus years retiring family is going through, or med boarded, or whatever that transition is that your family is having. This is the conversations you want to be having. Thank you, Aleida, for being here with me today. I love having this. I feel like all my guests should fly to Fort Hood and sit next to me in my office and just enjoy that little bit of time together. So just as a reminder, this is through SpouseLink. SpouseLink was created in 2012 by AFMA, which is the American Armed Forces Mutual Aid Association. And if you aren't familiar with AFMA, go look them up. Some amazing stuff. But AFMA wanted to connect military spouses to information that matters the most. And so they started SpouseLink. And through SpouseLink now, we're doing this live series that helps military spouses nearing retirement. I love being part of this mission to support, inform, and inspire. So go visit spouselink.org today. They've got an awesome blog over there that I know a lot of people that write for them, and it is good information. It's like good military spouse type information. Connect with me here on LinkedIn. Let me know what topics are on your mind, because I'm super interested in making sure that the conversations that we are having are what's important to you. Thank you again, Aleida, for sharing your wisdom with us today. And we will see everybody at the next SpouseLink live stream. Have a good day. Bye.